It's Friday at 5:00 p.m., right?
Okay.
You finally close your laptop, the screen goes dark.
Ah, the best feeling.
Right. And you look at this entire weekend stretching out ahead of you. But instead of feeling this like immense washing sense of relief, you feel this weird pressure.
Yeah, it's the pressure of the blank calendar.
Exactly. We suddenly have all this free time, but somehow the mandate to, relax feels almost as stressful as the job we just left. You're supposed to do something fulfilling, something engaging to recover from the week, but half the time you just end up staring at the wall or like doom scrolling on your phone.
It's a very real modern paradox, actually. We have this built-in expectation that the exact second the workday ends, a switch in our brain just flips.
Yeah, like we're instantly rejuvenated and ready for leisure.
Right. But the reality of human psychology is just far more complicated than that. I mean, we treat relaxation like this simple binary state. You're either on the clock working or you're off the clock resting. But genuine relaxation, the kind that actually restores you, is an active process.
Yeah, it's supposed to be clean and simple, but the actual landscape of how we spend our free time, how we find joy, is incredibly murky. And that's exactly what our deep dive is about today. We're looking at that murky landscape of free time, but through a lens you probably wouldn't expect.
No, definitely not the usual source material.
Right. So our source material today is actually a transcript from a conversational English lesson.
Which sounds completely mundane.
It really does. It's a dialogue between two people, Sarah and James, and it's focused entirely on the vocabulary of hobbies and free time.
On the surface, a language lesson about hobbies sounds like, well, the most basic thing imaginable. It's the kind of worksheet you breeze through in grade school.
Exactly. But our mission today is to pull this simple dialogue apart. Because when you look closely at the specific verbs Sarah and James use to describe their weekends, you realize those words aren't just random choices.
Not at all.
They actually reveal the hidden architecture of how human beings process stress, overcome friction, and ultimately, find passion.
Mm-hmm.
So for you listening right now, I really want you to think about how you describe your own favorite weekend activities.
Yeah, pay attention to the words you use.
Because the casual language you throw around at a dinner party might be telegraphing some deep psychological truths about how you survive your week.
I love that because, every passion and every hobby has a genesis. There's always a starting point, a day one. And if we want to understand why certain activities stick with us for decades while others just sort of fade after a week, we have to look at how we frame their beginnings.
Right.
If you look at the transcript, James and Sarah have completely different origin stories for their interests, and it really comes down to two very distinct phrases.
Yeah, the contrast is stark. Jen says he got into painting a couple of years ago, but Sarah says she picked up cooking during university, specifically because she had to cook for herself for the very first time.
Yes, and the lesson breaks these down brilliantly.
Right, so get into means to start becoming interested in an activity, usually deliberately. But pick up means to start doing an activity, often somewhat by chance or circumstance.
And that linguistic distinction between choice and chance is critical. It represents the entire psychological divide between deliberate exploration and circumstantial necessity.
So I was thinking about this on the drive-in, and it feels like picking up a hobby is a lot like picking up a stray cat.
Oh, a stray cat? Okay, I like that.
Right. It's completely accidental. You didn't wake up that morning planning to adopt an animal, buy cat food, and literally change your life. You just opened your front door, there was a cat, you had to feed it to keep it alive, and it was born purely out of the circumstance of that exact moment.
Yeah, out of sheer necessity.
Exactly. But eventually it becomes this meaningful, life-changing relationship. Meanwhile, James getting into painting sounds entirely deliberate. It's more like wading into a swimming pool on purpose. You put on your swimsuit, you walk to the edge, you test the water, and you consciously decide to submerge yourself.
The stray cat versus the swimming pool, that perfectly captures the difference between necessity and curiosity. I mean, look at Sarah's situation. Her cooking wasn't born out of a desire for culinary excellence.
No, she just needed to eat.
Exactly. It was born out of pure, unadulterated university necessity, the biological imperative of feeding herself. She didn't buy a chef's knife because she wanted a hobby.
She was just trying not to starve.
Right, trying to survive being away from home.
Yeah.
Yet that raw necessity eventually blossomed into her defining weekend activity.
Which is wild when you think about it. I mean, how many of our core personality traits or defining skills started as just basic, panicked survival tactics?
Oh, a surprising amount.
Right, like you're just trying not to eat instant noodles for the fourth day in a row, and a decade later, Your friends consider you the foodie of the group.
It happens constantly, and behavioral psychology actually backs this up.
Mhm.
Some of our most cherished, long-lasting pastimes start by accident because the environment demands a new skill.
Because we have no other choice.
Yeah, the brain doesn't like learning new things unless it absolutely has to. It's metabolically expensive, it takes energy. But when survival or circumstance forces you to build a new neural pathway, like Sarah learning to cook, you often discover this unexpected aptitude or joy along the way.
And what about James? He didn't have to paint.
No, James made a conscious cognitive choice to override his brain's default laziness. He sought out painting, he wanted to get into it, which implies a pre-existing curiosity. He had to generate his own motivation to go to an art store, buy canvases, and stare at a blank page.
So James chose the swimming pool, and Sarah kind of got stuck with the stray cat. But, origin stories only explain day one.
Right, they don't explain the long game.
Exactly. They don't explain longevity. Why do they stay with it once the initial spark of curiosity or the university necessity fades away? What is the actual mechanism that brings them relief now, years later?
Well, the transcript gets into that too.
It does. Jim says he finds painting really relaxing after a long day. And Sarah says she keeps cooking simple during the week, but she absolutely loves trying complex new recipes on the weekend.
And this is where the specific vocabulary gets incredibly revealing. The words they use to describe this mechanism are hands-on and unwind.
Right.
So a hands-on hobby is defined as involving literal physical work with your hands, and unwind is defined as relaxing and releasing tension.
Okay, see, I need to push back on this because it feels completely counterintuitive.
How so?
Well, Sarah's cooking complex new recipes on a Saturday. She's reading intricate instructions, precisely measuring ingredients, managing 4 different pans on a hot stove, and probably making a massive mess.
Yeah, it's intense.
And James is sitting hunched in front of a canvas after an 8-hour workday, concentrating on brushstrokes, mixing exact color ratios, trying to fix a mistake in the shading. I'm sorry, but how is doing more work actually relaxing?
It sounds exhausting.
Right. Isn't unwinding supposed to be sitting quietly on a couch and watching a movie? How is physical and mental exertion helping them unwind?
I get it. It sounds like a total contradiction until you look at how the human brain actually processes fatigue. What we often misinterpret as total full-body exhaustion at 5:00 p.m. is usually just localized cognitive fatigue.
Localized cognitive fatigue. Okay, what does that mean?
Think about the modern workday. If you're dealing with emails, navigating office politics, managing spreadsheets, or sitting in video calls all day,
The usual grind.
right, you're experiencing entirely abstract stress. It's the kind of stress where you never actually touch the things you're working on.
Wait, so you're saying my brain literally doesn't know how to close the emails tab because I can't physically touch an email because it's just pixels on a screen?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
For hundreds of thousands of years, the human brain evolved to handle physical stress and physical completion. You build a fire, you see the fire, you feel the heat, the task is done, the stress cycle completes.
Because there's a tangible result.
Right. But today, you send a report into the digital void, and nothing physically changes in your environment. There's no tangible completion. So when you sit on the couch and try to just, do nothing, your brain doesn't know the work is over.
It's still stuck at the office.
It keeps spinning those same abstract wheels. You keep worrying about the inbox.
Because there was no physical signal that the hunt was over.
Precisely. But a hands-on hobby forces a massive cognitive shift. The specific physical, tactile, highly demanding nature of these activities is exactly what allows James and Sarah to unwind.
So it's the physical nature of it that saves them.
Yes, when James focuses on the physical resistance of paint on a canvas, or when Sarah feels the weight of a knife chopping an onion, the brain is forced to shift resources away from the abstract anxiety centers and into the concrete sensory and motor cortex.
So it's like an override. The hands literally take over the brain.
Yes, exactly. The physical environment demands your immediate, total sensory attention. You biologically cannot worry about office politics when you are trying not to chop your finger off with a chef's knife.
Right. That takes priority.
Your brain prioritizes the immediate physical danger and tactile feedback. The term unwind is incredibly literal here. The abstract stress of the modern world winds the mind up like a tight, invisible spring.
And just sitting there doesn't fix it.
No, Doing nothing on the couch doesn't release the spring, it just lets it vibrate. Engaging the hands in a concrete, physical task acts as the release valve. It proves that intense active engagement is often a far more effective form of relaxation than passive consumption.
That makes so much sense. It's like you're giving your brain a physical anchor to pull it out of the digital cloud.
That's a great way to put it.
So because this physical engagement brings such profound relief, they obviously develop a deep relationship with the activity. But hobbies aren't static, right? They evolve. And in the transcript, we see this really fascinating transition. We move from the comfortable mastery of established hobbies into the gritty, ugly reality of starting a brand new one.
The messy part.
Yeah, the really messy part. Sarah mentions that her weekend cooking has become a true passion of hers. But then, almost in the same breath, she reveals she also started learning the acoustic guitar a couple of months ago.
Which introduces a completely different psychological state.
Right, and when asked how the guitar is going, she says it's going slowly, but she can play a few simple songs. The key vocabulary the lesson highlights here is passionate about, meaning to deeply love and care about something, and stick with, meaning to continue doing something despite intense difficulty or frustration.
And the contrast between those two specific states, being passionately comfortable with cooking and having to grit your teeth and stick with the guitar, that contrast is the entire architectural structure of human growth.
It honestly reminds me of the stages of a relationship.
Oh, how so?
Well, being passionate about her weekend cooking is like a really comfortable long-term marriage. She knows her way around the kitchen blindly. She knows intuitively what flavors work together. There's a deep, warm familiarity.
Sure, yeah.
But sticking with the slow, clumsy early days of learning the guitar, that's the awkward, frustrating first few dates. You're trying so hard, your fingers literally hurt, you're making terrible sounds, and you're constantly questioning if this is even worth your time.
Painful first dates phase, absolutely.
Which leads to the obvious question. Why do we do this?
Yeah.
Why willingly subject ourselves to the pain of the stick-with-it phase when we already have comfortable passions?
Yeah.
Sarah already has a great marriage with cooking to help her unwind. Why add the awful first dates of the guitar?
Well, because the brain is inherently contradictory.
What do you mean?
It craves the safety and efficiency of the known, which is the cooking, but it absolutely requires the friction of the unknown to stay agile. If we dig into the concept of sticking with something despite difficulty, we're really talking about neuroplasticity.
Okay, let's break that down, because neuroplasticity gets thrown around a lot as a buzzword. What is actually happening in Sarah's brain when she's struggling with those awful guitar chords?
So, neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to literally rewire itself to build new physical pathways. But here's the catch. Building a new pathway burns a massive amount of energy. The brain is naturally efficient, which means it's, well, lazy.
Right, it wants the path of least resistance.
Exactly. It wants to use the old, well-paved roads, like the cooking skills Sarah has been practicing since university. Forcing the brain to build a new road for the guitar feels physically and emotionally uncomfortable. That frustration she feels, that's the sensation of metabolic friction.
So the stick-with-it phase is basically just enduring the biological discomfort of your brain doing construction work.
Yes. Exactly. And if we connect the dots between Sarah's early days of forced cooking at university and her current struggle with the guitar, a very clear life cycle emerges. You can never, ever reach the passionate about phase without surviving the stick with it phase.
You have to earn it.
Right. When Sarah was first learning to cook in her dorm, she definitely burned food, underseasoned dishes, and felt that exact same metabolic friction. But because she had to eat, circumstance forced her to stick with it until the neural pathways smoothed out.
But with a guitar, nobody is forcing her. It's not a survival necessity. She isn't going to starve if she doesn't learn Wonderwall, so her intrinsic motivation has to be so much higher to push through that friction.
Which is why choosing a new hobby as an adult is so incredibly difficult. She has to willfully choose to sit there with calluses forming on her fingers, playing the same 3 clumsy chords over and over again.
It sounds miserable when you put it like that.
It is. But she does it because, intuitively, she knows that the comfort she currently feels in the kitchen was paid for by the frustration of her early days. The stick-with-it phase is the toll booth you have to pass through to cross the bridge into passion.
It's the price of admission. But again, if she already has the kitchen, why seek out the toll booth at all?
Because mastery provides a very specific neurochemical reward. The old passion cooking provides baseline stability, serotonin, and a reliable way to unwind abstract stress. But conquering a new struggle provides a massive spike in dopamine and a sense of expansive growth that a comfortable pre-existing passion simply can no longer provide.
So we need both.
We do. We seek out new difficulties because a life composed only of comfortable routines eventually stagnates. We need the awkward first dates of a new hobby to remind us that we are still capable of transformation.
Wow. It's just wild to me that all of this deep, intricate psychological insight is hiding inside a basic conversational English dialogue.
Those right there.
It really is all right there in the verbs. So let's recap the journey of a hobby through these 6 exact phrases, because it maps out the human experience of finding joy so perfectly.
Let's do it.
First, a passion starts by either accidentally picking up a skill purely out of circumstance, like adopting a stray cat, or intentionally getting into it by wading into the pool deliberately.
The origin?
Right. Then we use the hands-on, tactile nature of physical work to actively unwind the abstract, invisible stress of modern life. And finally, if we want to grow, we have to find the willpower to stick with the awkward, frustrating friction of building new neural pathways until we're finally passionate about it.
It's a remarkable universal progression. And for you listening, right now is a perfect moment to audit your own free time. Look at the activities you gravitate toward when the workday finally ends. Be honest with yourself and ask which vocabulary phase you're currently experiencing.
Yeah, take a hard look at it.
Are you just picking something up out of necessity?
Hmm.
Are you comfortably unwinding with an old familiar habit? Or are you in the gritty, necessary, frustrating phase of sticking with something totally new?
I know I'm definitely in the awkward first dates phase with a couple of side projects right now.
Yeah.
And honestly, just framing that frustration as metabolic construction work in my brain makes it a lot easier to endure.
Most of us are in that phase if we're actually challenging ourselves. But, you know, looking at all of this raises one final overarching question that really builds on everything we've uncovered from Sarah and James today.
But what's that?
We just talked about how desperately our brains need hands-on physical friction to literally unwind from abstract stress.
Yeah.
Does this suggest that in our increasingly digital, screen-focused modern lives where our jobs, our relationships, and our entertainment are all reduced to pixels, that physical hobbies are becoming our last remaining anchor to the tangible world?
Wow. Our last anchor.
As our daily existence becomes completely virtual, are hands-on hobbies the only place left where we still get to physically shape our reality?
That is a phenomenal thought to leave on. Because the next time it's Friday at 5:00 p.m. and you're staring at that empty weekend calendar feeling that strange, heavy pressure, well, maybe the answer isn't to look for a way to just turn your brain off on the couch. Maybe the answer is just to find something, anything to build, break, or shape with your hands.